do this committee training. This will be by three of us from Ebenezer, myself. Kara will present about halfway through the program, and then Jake will pop in at the end to talk about some specific things with financial things related to committees. And so we'll go ahead and get started here. Being on a committee, as well as being from management or the board of directors or just any member here at the cooperative, it's part of a team here at 7500 York. There are many different people, whether you're serving in management, whether you're serving on the board, serving on a committee, or a member perhaps doing some other related activity to serving the community. All of us are a part of a team here. And just to have a little bit of an overview about cooperatives, I think that most cooperative members know this already, but there are perhaps some newer cooperative members that are still getting their arms around the concept of exactly what a cooperative is. Cooperative housing means joint ownership on this property, and the operation of a housing development by those members who live in it. It's a community that's built and operated at an affordable cost, and I would say that 7500 York is operated at a more affordable cost than many other cooperatives are. The members, all of the members, act as landlord. All members are equal co-owners. Members equally vote to elect a cooperative board of directors and from among the resident membership. The board of directors confirms committees. That's an important concept. And the community is governed by the board according to the bylaws. So there are certain governing documents that the board of directors, committees, all members, management, that we all operate by. We're not shooting from the hip when it comes to the governance of a cooperative and how things operate, but there's a board that governs, and there are governing documents that we all refer to and abide by. Now, if anyways along the way here as I'm presenting, or Kara or Jake as well, I want this to be as much of an interactive presentation, or an interactive dialogue between me as the presenter and you as committee chairs, board liaisons, committee members, because I want to be able to answer your questions, particularly about any specifics that you might have. So please just raise your hand anytime if you have a question, and I will address those along the way. The cooperative structure looks like this. You have all the member co-owners sits at the top of the cooperative structure. Coming down from that is the board of directors, who's the governing body, and then off to the side is the management company, in this case, Ebenezer Management Services. And then below the board of directors, really as an extension of the board, doing the work on behalf of the board, or not just the work, but doing different capacities of work in different areas, are all of the standing committees that this and any cooperative has. And then one of those standing committees that 7500 York has is the RAC committee, Resident Activities, and below that are all of the RAC committees. And I won't read all of those. I think everybody is more or less familiar what the standing committees are, and then what the different RAC committees are. So what is your role as members in general? Now, this is not pejorative at all, please, but there are members who are not involved at all in a cooperative. There are members who may be watching from the sidelines a bit, and then there are members who make things happen. So in our presentation here, those that aren't involved at all, and maybe they just go on living life without being involved in any activities of the cooperative, certainly not involved in any committees, those members may just be wondering what's happened from day to day. And then there are also members who maybe they're a little bit tentative to get involved, whether it's in activities or whether it's in some capacity of serving on a committee or on the board. And those members are maybe just sitting on the sidelines and watching things happen, and maybe they need to be invited to participate. Maybe they need to be pushed a little bit to participate, asked to participate. And then those who are participating, serving on committees, serving on the board, or volunteering in some other way. Those are the people that are making things happen in a cooperative. As a volunteer organization, a community association, that's 7500 York, or any cooperative, faces the unusual challenge of running a corporation. So this is a corporation, this is a business, with volunteer leadership. Volunteer owners have varied experience to dedicate to their roles. And even with professional management staff managing the day-to-day operations of an association, of a cooperative, board members are still called upon to fill roles for which they may not have the time or even the expertise, and this is where committees are extremely valuable and vital. This is a very large cooperative. I have worked with several cooperatives over the years, from small ones as small as 38 units up to others in the 100-unit range or so. So I moved from that to 337 units. So I've seen the whole gamut of the size of cooperatives. I have seen the challenge of getting volunteers to do the work of cooperatives. And I will say certainly in the case of 7500 York Cooperative, it is absolutely essential to have all of the volunteers that this cooperative has. There is so much going on, and if it was just left up to the board as a working board to try and do everything that all of you are doing out there, we'd have some board members that would be walking around like this all the time saying, what hit me? They may be saying that anyway, but certainly committee members serve a very important role, and you might even say volunteers are superheroes. Now, I see the work that committee chairs are putting into their committees, and certainly the chair of the RAC committee comes to mind in working with so many different subcommittees, but the standing committees as well have very important roles when it comes to, and I'm going to leave some out here because I haven't memorized all of the standing committees, but the ones that I work with in finance and property, the food service fill such important roles here, and all of their committee members as well as the chairs. If the board tried to do all of that, or the management tried to do all of that, it simply would not work. So the volunteers here, and there are dozens and dozens, are really superheroes of the cooperative. So what are the types of committees? I think most are familiar with this, but there are the standing committees. They are the committees that are here in perpetuity, unless perhaps the the board would want to dissolve that committee, but they perform a continuing function. They deal with specific areas, whether it's food service or property or finances or archives or the Stop and Shop, different things like that. Marketing, certainly. There are ad hoc committees or special committees, and those are committees that are appointed by the president or the board. They accomplish a specific task or objective, and they cease to exist once the task is complete. And then in the case of this cooperative, which is different than most others, there are resident activities committees. Now, other cooperatives do have subcommittees, but certainly not to the extent that 7500 York does. And so the RAC committees are governed by the RAC Standing Committee. They perform a continuing function, and they plan and implement activities and events for the enrichment of the membership. Any questions to this point? So how do committees work? As I mentioned before, committees and their members are the worker bees of the cooperative. Certainly those of us on the management staff are worker bees of sorts in many different capacities. The board may be worker bees, or they may be just serving as a governing body. And here I would say at 7500 York, the board of directors functions mostly as a governing body. But back to committees. Committees are asked to study and discuss issues facing the cooperative and make recommendations to the board of directors on what is best for the community as a whole. And that's important, those last few words there. What is best for the community as a whole? That always needs to be kept in mind as committees are serving. The committee function is crucial to the overall functioning of the cooperative. And the committee chair, who sits as the organizer and the moderator of a committee, the committee chair oversees and directs the committee functions and delegates specific responsibilities on that committee that they lead. And each committee member should have a clear and specific role. So if you have a committee such as the marketing committee, the membership and marketing committee, they're involved in different things as like tours or events that they put on, or maybe communicating with waitlist members. Maybe it's showing units. Maybe volunteering to show their units. So there are a lot of different specific functions that each committee has, and members serving on those committees can be responsible. They can be delegated by the committee chair to handle those different responsibilities. What are the best practices for committees? Now, it's important that committees have and follow best practices. Who can tell me how the bylaws provides for committees, provides for the governance of committees? Does anybody have any idea of what the bylaws say about committees and how committees should function and what committees there should be and how many members should be on committees and so forth? What do the bylaws say about that? Yes. It was a trick question, and that is not correct, but I appreciate you taking a shot. The bylaws really do not provide. The bylaws are largely silent on committees, other than it is the role of the president or the board as a whole to form committees and to approve them. Stemming out of that, they would approve their charters. We'll get to that later. But if boards or presidents can form a committee, they can also dissolve a committee. But other than that, bylaws and any other governing documents other than those that a cooperative might make as far as policies, bylaws are silent on committees. And so it's really up to cooperatives and perhaps through their management company to follow what are best practices for committees. So what are best practices? One is that members may serve as the chair of only one committee. Spread the love around a little bit. If you had one member who was the chair of 2 committees or 3 committees, it's a lot of power per se that's in the hands of one person. And so it's usually limited to just being chair of one committee. Board members should not serve on any committee. Now my slide says that this allows for more overall membership involvement, and that's very true. But again, it helps to separate. I'm picking up a little reverb here, Judy. I don't know if maybe it's that. That's better. It also keeps a separation of power between committees and board members. So say, for example, you had a board member or board members, and that board member or board members were sitting on the finance committee and making decisions and voting on that committee. Those board members that sat on that committee would have too much power in that area of the cooperative for finances. So that's why board members, as a best practice, do not serve on committees. Are there exceptions to that? There are. Certainly in smaller cooperatives where there aren't as many people to go around to fill all of the positions, you will find board members sometimes serving on committees, but almost certainly not as the chair of a committee. So are board liaisons committee members? Anybody want to venture a guess? David, you raised your hand. No. I asked if, let me speak a little more into the microphone here. Are board liaisons committee members? No, they are not. They are just the liaison from the board to that committee. They are sitting in, observing. It's all right, David. I'll give you a chance to make it up later. And we'll get more into the board liaison role later, but liaisons are not committee members. They are generally not expected to participate in the discussion that the board is having. They're certainly not voting on something. They're certainly not leading the conversation in a committee. So board members are appointed as liaisons to be assigned. That's not quite right. Anyway, board members are appointed as liaisons to assigned committees to speak out or to speak and act on behalf of the board of directors. Their main role is communication between the board and the committee. Any questions up until this point? So just to have some examples of what the different roles are of committees, of management, of the board, in these few different areas here, when it comes to hiring a vendor or a contractor, a committee's role might be to identify needs, vendors, and specifications for a project. And that might also depend on what their specific charter is as to whether they do that. Management's role with hiring a vendor or contract is soliciting bids or maybe getting presentations by the vendors. It's the board's role as the governing body to approve the vendor and or a contract with a vendor. In the area of budget preparation, committees will work with management in putting together a balanced budget. So if you remember back to last year when I started my first budget process here, I invited all of the committee chairs to come, and I was soliciting input from the committees of what might need to be in the budget, either as an operational cost that a committee might be dealing with, or maybe a committee had some idea about a major project that needed to be done. But anyway, the committee would be there having the role of giving information to management. Management, and as general manager, I would be gathering that data, completing projections, and putting together a budget draft for the board of directors who approves the budget. And there's some middle things there. It would channel through the finance committee before getting to the board as well. Adopting policies for the cooperative, different roles that committees and management and the board have. The committee's role may be to research the need for a policy, make recommendations about a policy, something that they have come across in their area of responsibility as a committee, and they say, you know, this is kind of a gray area with the board. It's not with the cooperative. It's not really being attended to. We're not quite sure as a committee or a cooperative how to function with this issue or this area. And so a committee might come up with an idea for that. It's then jumping over to the board's role to set that policy. And then it's management's role to enforce policies. So just a division of responsibilities with committees, with the board, with management. Back to the board liaison role. Board liaisons don't make motions or vote when they attend committee meetings. I have seen it across the board. I've attended a lot of committee meetings, whether it is here or in other cooperatives, either as a property manager or as a regional manager. And I have seen a lot of different practices in how board liaisons relate or perform in a committee meeting. I have seen in some cooperatives, not this one, where essentially because of other lack of leadership, the board liaison essentially functioned as that committee's chairperson. I have seen, certainly in other cooperatives that I have worked with, where aside from voting, the board liaison acted just the same as any of the other committee chairs, actively participating in the committee's discussion and moving towards a resolution, a motion, and eventually a resolution, even though that liaison may not vote. And then what I typically mostly see is how I described it earlier, is that the liaison is there as the liaison between the board and the committee, mostly for communication, but it could be for some guidance as well. So board liaisons maintain communication. They're there to listen and to guide. It's also the board's responsibility or role through the liaison to recognize the efforts of the committee and what they're doing. And then the board, because the liaison is bringing action items from the committee to the board should be prepared to make decisions and act on recommendations brought to them by that liaison. Any questions on that? What is a committee charter? Now, currently, the cooperative is not using or has not used committee charters, at least in that with that title. The cooperative with the committees has been using, I don't know what you call the document here. Can anybody help with that? Yes. Duties and responsibilities. And so we are moving in the directions of actually having committee charters for committees, which are put together by the committees themselves, and they go to the board of directors for approval, and they're reviewed each year, and it's a continual updating of that charter. But the board sanctions each charter, so when the committee makes it, it needs to go to the board, and the board needs to approve it. Like I said, it's the task of the committee to write their charter. And so the parts of the charter that will be there, what is the committee name? What type of committee is it? What's the purpose of the committee? What's the scope of authority? Membership, how many committee members will there be? Is it fluid? Is it a set number? Is it flexible in any way? What's the term? How many years will a committee member serve? And can they serve more than one term, either as regular committee members or as committee chairs? Those are things that need to be proposed by committees, put into their charter, and then approved by the board of directors. Now, the cooperative may have a policy about committees that sets in place some of this already, as far as how many committee members there are and how long they serve. So some of this may already be established by cooperative policy, and the committees would need to work within that as they form their committee charter. And then just simple things is, how often does the committee meet, and where do they meet, and what time do they meet, so on and so forth. The charter allows the committee to operate successfully by detailing the duties that it has, the principles, boundaries, terms, and functions. Any questions about anything related to committee charters? It's a quiet group today. Yes?
When do you want to implement this? When are you thinking about implementing committee charter?
In the coming months, soon,
Okay.
yes. So when it comes to creating a committee charter, there's basic steps to have a successful charter. First one is determining the authority of the committee. So can your committee, make decisions, or does it only make recommendations to the board? So a committee might have the authority to make decisions on its own if it's been given authority by whom? By the board. So the board has the ability to do that with a committee. If it's something where it might take a lot of effort of the committee always needing to come to the board or about this or that or the other thing, maybe something that's not terribly at a high level, or affecting the governance of the cooperative, the board can grant authority, limited authority, to committees to act in certain ways and make certain decisions. The committee might also have the authority over a budget. So when it comes to the budget process and establishing an operating budget, there may be a budget, such as with the RAC committee and the subcommittees that they have authority to operate with the budget that they have. There may be other committees that want or need that type of authority so that there's not too much burden being put on the board for the committee, or from the committee going to the board all the time and asking approval for this and approval for that. So in the scope of authority that's in a committee's charter, there may be authority given to it by the board. The committee charter should have a clear purpose and function of what the committee does. It should have specific responsibilities for the committee and its members. The charter will determine how many members are needed to fulfill the responsibilities, how they're appointed, how the leadership is arrived at for the committee. Is the committee voting on its own committee chair, and how the voting happens for that committee? A lot of that is very similar to how a board is run, or maybe following Robert's Rules of Order or some other governing entity for how meetings are run. It's good for a committee to have an annual calendar. So when you are first established as a committee, or you get new members on your committee, and the transition between April and May, you're able to sit down in one of your first meetings and say, okay, what does our year look like? What are our activities? What are we expected to do? What do we want to do? What do we need to do to be functioning successfully as a committee? You'll also want to clarify the types and frequency of reporting that the board is expecting. So coming out of your committee certainly are minutes that are being put together. Is that the only communication that the board is expecting from a committee? Or is the board perhaps expecting some kind of more detailed report that's coming from the committee or from the committee chair each month? Are there maybe financial activities that are happening within your committee that the board wants communication about? So as a part of your charter that's approved by the board, you need to determine what types of reporting and what is the frequency of that reporting from the committee to the board of directors. You'll also create an understanding of the committee's relationship with the management, or the general manager, or anybody on the management staff. For example, Kara is here. She's the resident activities coordinator. And certainly the RAC committee has an understanding with the resident activities coordinator. What are the responsibilities back and forth? What type of relationship is there for meetings and other types of things? Any questions on that? Guidelines for an effective committee. You need to be prepared for your meetings. It's important for committees, especially the chairs, to know the cooperative's policies, what the practices of the cooperative are, what the procedures are, maybe what some of the historical things that have happened with the committee and different activities that the committee may be responsible for. Scheduling and announcing meetings, and you can do that for the entire year. So that goes back to that annual calendar. Set your meetings, set your activities, schedule that all out so your committee members know when your meetings are, and they can adjust their travel or any of their appointments that they may have. Distribute the agenda and minutes at least 5 days prior to the meeting so your members know what's going to happen at the next meeting, what the business will be. In the meetings, it's important to follow the agenda to achieve the goals of that particular meeting. You'll want to encourage participation, but keep the discussion on track. I know because I do it. I'm as guilty of this as anyway. I can take any topic. Laura will know this. I can go off on this tangent and I can get off on that tangent, and pretty soon whatever our item was for discussion and action may end up a couple of counties away because I've thought of something really interesting to say or something that's related to it. You want to stay on track with your meetings. Always recognize the member who's speaking and leave your personal feelings at home. Now, do you want to leave your personal biases at home? Not necessarily. You come to the committee and you serve on the committee with a life's worth of experience and opinions about things and expertise about things, and you certainly will have biases about how things work or how things operate. It's important to bring that to a committee. You do want to leave your personal feelings at home. You don't want to go so far as saying, well, I know best on this and I want my way and I don't care what anybody else says. It's really important to leave your feelings at home, but bring your expertise, bring your knowledge, and even your opinions about things. And through it all, you need to seek consensus. Essentially, what comes out of a committee is the decision of the entire committee and not just the ones that voted yay and not nay. The same with the board. When the board makes a decision, it's the decision of the entire board, and the board supports that decision even though there may have been some that were not in favor of it. The same with committees. Once a committee makes a decision for recommendation to the board, or perhaps the board has given authority for the committee to make a decision of its own and act upon it. Once the decision has been made and voted on, even if it's 4-3, all 7 members own that decision, not just the 4 that voted yay. Close the meeting by acknowledging members and noting achievements, listing action items, and clarifying concerns. Any questions? You want to have the agenda that I mentioned on the prior screen, and I think most of you do already. And the agenda that is here is a pretty standard agenda, whether it's for a board meeting, a committee meeting, or any other type of meeting. You'll call the meeting to order. You'll have a roll call of who's there, and that's important because you want to know that the members that have volunteered for your committee, that everybody is coming and participating. Does it mean that committee members can never be absent? No. Everybody has their life too, and they have appointments. And while the expectation would be that you're at most of the meetings, that's why committees or boards have quorums so that they can function without every single member being there. You'll have a discussion about and approval of the previous meeting minutes, and then you'll get into old business that is carried over from the past meeting or past meetings, new business, and then you'll set a date for the next meeting and adjourn your meeting. Wouldn't it be great if all committee meetings went just that fast right there? but they don't. Yes, a question over here.
Different committees have different numbers of people.
Right, that is here. Yeah, going back to here under membership. That's that maybe is not as clear as it should have been, but that's how many committee members there will be. And then in the next slide, determining how many members are needed to fulfill the responsibilities. So that is there. Yes. Thank you for that question. And then going on to the role, a committee has not only a chairperson and the committee members, but there is somebody there functioning as the secretary of the committee. That is everybody's favorite role. I know that to be true. How many people believe that? Wait for the mic there.
Oh, thanks. In our committee, which is furnishings, we do not have anybody that will be the secretary. So we decided we're going to just, take turns appointing some, just take turns doing it. Do you have any other suggestions?
Other than twisting somebody's arm really
Or
hard.
breaking it?
We want to avoid injuries in committee meetings. But no, other committees do that as well, as long as there is somebody there mostly capably keeping the minutes of the meeting so that there is a record of what happened at the meeting.
I have a question.
Time for,
Yeah. I know the board has to have a quorum in order to pass something. Is that also in the committee's charters, or should it be?
yes, I believe so. I didn't say this explicitly earlier, but a committee is really an extension of the function of the board. And so really the parameters that a board would be following would be the same for committees. Now, can a cooperative act without or operate without committees? Yes, although the board may be, like I demonstrated earlier, a cooperative can't function without a board. But really the role of committees is as an extension of the board, and the committees would generally follow the same types of parameters that a board would have for how they function.
I believe that I had heard earlier from, I think, Kara, that talked about having a treasurer of these various committees, and I don't see any mention of that. Is that something that we should be considering or instituting?
If the question is, should a committee have a treasurer? Well, mostly no, unless a committee is actively handling funds. So, for example, I had a committee at my first cooperative that I was at. It was the social committee, and they had they operated with their own funds. So the members would pay for meals that they had as a function, and that would stay with the committee. The committee had their own separate bank account, and so that committee had a treasurer of its own. Now, it's a bit of an aside of how that functions, where there is accountability for those funds and so forth. And just quickly, generally the financial activities of that committee would be checked off by the finance committee regularly, and check their own financial reports that they kept internally. But if a committee is not handling its own funds, and those funds are not passing through the cooperative's coffers, it's not necessary to have a treasurer. That's a good question. I think that, yes.
Wondering about the point of complete information.
Bob.
Pardon? Oh,
Speak a little louder.
okay. If, in your experience, I think we have different ideas about what the minutes of the meeting should include. And I think the error is frequently on way too much. Now, would you offer some advice on what you think is the important information to include in minutes?
Probably going to get myself in some trouble here because I know there are some fantastic minutes here that are multi-page documents. Just a quickie that I would say is minutes are called minutes and not hours. Because there should be some brevity to them. In a cooperative that has mostly closed committee meetings and closed board meetings, is there perhaps more importance to having unabridged minutes kept so that members reading can see more of what discussion there was and some of that type of interaction? It's hard for me to give you a really good answer. Minutes generally are expected to be kept shorter and focused mainly on motions and resolutions that are being approved, and not a lot more than that. But there's certainly a lot of practice all the way to the other end of the spectrum. And I would just say, as long as committees are happy with their minutes and the board is happy with their minutes and it's working well, I'm not going to give guidance otherwise. But my own personal preference is minutes that are more brief in their content rather than longer.
Regarding Rhett's question earlier about treasurers for committees, that is specific to the RAC committees. RAC has a budget, and each subcommittee, most subcommittees, have a budget. And we weren't asking for official treasurers. We were asking for a representative of each committee to track the committee's expenses so that when I run expense reports for the subcommittees, they match what's going on within the committee. So it's a cross-check. It's a check and balance. So our numbers are the same.
And I'm really happy that you've established that, if it wasn't established before. Okay, good questions. Appreciate the interaction. So again, meeting minutes are the official record of the meetings. They accomplish documentation of the actions and decisions of the committee. It's a mode of communication to the board. They provide complete information to those who were unable to attend and for the historical record. And so I would say to, further answer your question, when it says here on the slide, it provides complete information. Those minutes that are longer and more of a narrative do provide better information to members who are not able to attend because it's a closed meeting of the committee or of the board. Now the next line says, keep them brief and accurate. So I'm not going to go any further than that. You can have them be brief, you can have them be longer, whatever works. Distribute them in a timely manner at least 5 days prior to the next meeting. Committee chair follow-up, and I'll go through this a little bit quickly here. The committee chair is overseeing and guiding projects and decisions submitted to the board. So they're communicating through the board liaison, and they're providing information to a staff liaison who may attend the meetings as well. Evaluate your committee's proceedings. Is there a committee? Is the committee following its charter? Are all members participating? So when you have a committee and maybe only 2 or 3 of your 7 members are participating, you want to follow up on that. You want to draw in the other members that are maybe being silent during the meetings and not contributing anything. Maybe they're just silent and not communicating, that maybe they're just a little bit shy. Maybe they don't feel like they have something important to contribute. And I think everybody has something important to contribute. You'll want to motivate and develop your committee members. So does each member have a specific and clear role? Are new members participating? And usually it's with newer members that aren't participating as much as some of the veterans on the committee. Is it possible or necessary to have veteran members mentor new members? That's just an idea. And have you acknowledged committee members in a meaningful way? It's important for committee chairs to recognize the efforts of those that are serving with them. Conflict. This never happens, right? This is a cooperative, and everybody acts cooperatively, and everybody gets together, gets along together. Well, conflict does happen from time to time, and when you are volunteering on a committee, everybody's got their own opinions. Some people have stronger opinions than others do. Some really may want to see that the cooperative or this area, something in this area happens a certain way. So conflict can arise from a lack of clarity about what roles and responsibilities are of a committee chair and committee members. There may be inadequate communication about something. Maybe the activity or the process or a procedure about something has not been communicated about well enough and all of the details. And maybe you need to just look at explaining things a little bit further or a little bit better. Unclear plan or goals for the year. So going back to your annual calendar and determining what your activities are, you want to make sure that those are clear and that they've been well communicated. There may be a lack of direction from the board. And if there is a lack of direction from the board, what should your committee do? Ask for direction from the board. Get clarity from the board. What do you want from our committee? What do you need from our committee? And sometimes there is conflict between those that are newer to a committee, that aren't shy, and those that have been on a committee for a number of years and have it in their mind that this committee operates well and we should keep operating exactly the same way that it's been operating for years, as opposed to somebody who may have some new ideas. So how do you navigate conflict? So first thing is to remember that everybody, all the committee members, have a valuable role within the committee. Each member brings different skills and experiences to their role. I talked about that a little bit earlier. All members' ideas and thoughts have merit and should be considered, even if some of the other committee members think ideas don't have merit. Everybody's ideas have some merit and are valued for having some discussion or being considered. Members who voice concern should be encouraged to propose a solution at the same time. So sometimes conflict arises out of somebody just continuing to bring up problems, or maybe sounding more like a complainer than somebody who is wanting to solve a problem that the committee is facing or is working on for the cooperative. So it's really important as you bring up concerns or problems that at the same time you are prepared to bring up some answers or some solutions or recommendations. All members should be encouraged to be clear, concise, and to the point. That's my strong point. Sometimes. Just joking. Members should be acknowledged in a meaningful way for their efforts and accomplishments. Sometimes conflict can arise out of somebody contributing and feeling like they're not being valued, that they are not being recognized. Maybe not in a special way, but just that they're not being given credit for, some of the ideas or some of the work that they're doing. Successful committees, they have a written committee charter, they have active and interactive members, they have open communication, they have an effective chairperson, and they have accountability to the board. So you can maintain an effective committee by utilizing your chairs, co-chairs, and vice chairs. And Kara may explain a little bit more about co-chairs and vice chairs later in her presentation if that's necessary. Establish and reinforce time limits so that there's a turnover of members and there's always a fresh ideas and fresh efforts and new expertise that's coming to a committee. Create and maintain goals and expectations. Have that annual calendar. Provide flexibility in scheduling and responsibilities. You don't want to have a schedule that only works for the committee chair for meeting on Friday at 7 p.m. Nobody wants to meet on Friday at 7 p.m. You choose a schedule that works for everybody. Establish good division of responsibilities and delegate. Delegate, 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 especially especially important for committee chairs. And then again, I've said this a few times, practice recognition and appreciation of members. That's really important. Committee chair survival guide. Delegate. When in doubt, ask. Come to a staff member. Go to the board. Be willing to disagree agreeably. Be consistent. Learn to say no. Support is available to your committee, whether it's from the administration. Megan can help with that. Activities and publicity. Kara is here. Technical, the 990 tech team. Financial, Jake. Facilities, Michael. And for training, guidance, and encouragement, you can come to me. One last thing here. I think this is my, this is my last slide in this section. It's also important for committees to consider that there are other committees, and your different committees may be working on different parts of the same project within a building. So perhaps the ad hoc lab committee, lobby and balcony committee, well, that may cross over in some ways with the property committee as things with the property are being considered. Or it may cross over with the finance committee as the finances of a project are being considered. So committees need to consider how and when they can communicate with other committees and to know what the other committees are doing in the cooperative, where there may be some interaction or interconnectivity between what committees are doing. So for example, the Finance Committee should be communicating the process of establishing the budget. The RAC Committee may look to the Furnishings or Workshop Committee to assist with a project. And one recommendation is to perhaps consider meeting periodically, maybe quarterly, with the other chairs. So all of the committee chairs could get together with some regularity to discuss projects that are underway and share ideas and make sure communication is working. Before making changes to meeting and activity schedules, confirm that the changes don't conflict with other committees, meetings, or events. And then involve the general manager or director of property or another staff member that may be working with another committee and may have some conflict in getting together. That was an awful lot there, and I hope that has been helpful. I appreciate the questions. Are there any final questions that I can take before Kara gets up here and does her work?
The present policy for 3-year terms, and then also for standing committees, 7 members. So in creating a charter, would those policies be in effect?
So if that is already cooperative policy, then it would be my understanding that committees would need to abide by those. If there was any need for an exception to that, you would want to go to the board of directors for that. Bob, wait for the microphone here.
I think all of what this summary was very helpful, but I would also point out that this really addresses standing committees which are limited to 7 members. The RAC committees, the subcommittees of the RAC, can have 20 members or 3. So I think in some events, in some of these points, I think people should not, if there's any misunderstanding about RAC committees and how they operate, I would say their operation is somewhat different because standing committees only have 7 people to deal with, and others may have many, many more or very few.
That's true, and if there are any more specific questions about that with RAC committees, I'll let Kara address that in her time in presenting. Well, without further ado, I'm going to have Kara come forward here.
Are we ready for the 7th inning stretch? You want to stand up, take a quick stretch? There we go. I don't need that, thanks. I use my hands a lot, so that's why I'm doing this thing. Sure. Yeah, and you're doing with... Oh, that's good right there. Perfect. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll give you a quick minute to stretch, take a deep breath, shake it all out, get ready for the next session. All right, whenever you're ready, give me the high sign. Good to see all of you. And if there are people out there on 990. So my thing, as most of you know, is coordinating all the activities and events here at 7500 York. And if you're new to the building, or if you haven't participated quite a bit in the community, I'm sure you noticed that there's a lot going on here. And you probably maybe wonder if you're new, how does all this happen? It all happens by committee. Everything that happens in this building is done by committee. And everything is accomplished by groups of people, committees, getting together and making it happen. Mitch, Jake, Hannah, Barb, those of us on the administrative staff, we're all here to assist the committees, but it's all run by the members. So when I get a phone call from somebody that says, I want to come in and do a presentation at your community, I say, great, what do you do? Give me your information, and I'm going to pass it on to the committee or the committees that might be the most appropriate to make that happen. Well, can I come in and talk to you about it? Because no. I'll introduce you to the people that might be the appropriate committee for that sort of presentation. But I just want to get in and talk to somebody. Great. I'll pass your information on to the committees that might handle that type of information. Oh, okay. We get the Eeyore moment. And then I pass it on to music and arts or life enrichment or whomever is most appropriate for that. A lot of it is activities committees, but it's not always activities committees. Every committee, maybe not finance, but most committees sooner or later want to do something in the community, whether it's a lecture, whether it's a survey, whether you're having a speaker, performer, an outing, a survey, anything that requires internal publicity, setup support, or technical support is what I'm going to talk about right now. So sooner or later, almost every committee in this building is going to need to talk to me. So how we support your programs, internal publicity. Those are the things that come across my desk. So you have your monthly activities calendar. Every month, you get one of these. It lists every event that's going on in this building every month. Occasionally, I make a mistake. I try not to. Let me know if I do, and I'll try to fix it. But I try to get everything on here. Then you have your monthly coming events highlights. This takes these specific things and gives you a little bit more detail about them. So you can read a little bit more to decide whether you want to pursue it further. Lobby posters. These guys that are on the wall near the mailboxes, this is internal publicity. In elevator postings, you ride up and down the elevator, you've got the postings. That's all internal publicity. Announcements on the morning daily 990 update. That's internal publicity because we're talking about, every morning we're talking about what's going on in the building. By the way, just an aside, how many people listen or watch the morning update every day or some days? Okay. Are you aware that they're also rebroadcast now every day at 11:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m.? Every day, Monday through Friday, except when there's something in conflict. Right? Like right now, there's not a daily update rebroadcast because this is being broadcast now. So if you have a medical appointment or you're not in the building at 9 o'clock in the morning, you can turn 990 on at 11:30 or at 2:30 to catch that update that was done that morning. So remember that. That is kind of new. Okay, so what else do we do to support you? Technical support. The 990 technical team is there to help you. They are phenomenal people who do everything they can to make your presentations go smoothly. That's AV here in the CAC. That's assistance or training to use equipment in the other rooms, the social room. I know there's some equipment in the fireside room, but if you're doing a presentation and you need any sort of technical support, those are your go-to people, and they're amazing. Setup. When you have an event, you need tables, you need chairs, you need things moved here and there. That is our housekeeping team led by Mike Anderson. Those are pieces that you need to support your event. And then the York Times, which we'll talk about later because it's a little bit, we handle that a little bit differently than all the other internal marketing. Any questions about what we do to support your event or your program? Okay, great. Okay, planning an event. This looks scary. It's not scary. It's really easy. You start by an idea. A light bulb goes off. Somebody on your committee says, I want to do this. You look at what's available in dates. If you want to find out what's going on in the community, are there other events going on? Are there meetings? Are there conflicts? Come to me. I keep a calendar of all the events that are going on in the building. All the events, all the meetings. I often have people that come and say, I want to have an event in the beginning of September. What days are good? What days is there too much going on? When would be a good time? And we work through the calendar and we noodle out what might be the best times, what we know is going on in the greater community also. Something came up about something in November. Remember, it's election year. You want to avoid that week completely, unless you want to distract people. Anyway, you figure out what's a good date range for you to do your event. Then you take it to your committee. Remember from the beginning, everything is done by committee. No one person plans or executes an event. So you take it to your committee, you talk about it with your committee, you get consensus, you get input, you get feedback. You find out if you have a budget to get it done. And then if there's a consensus, there's support from your committee, you run with it. You come to me, reserve the date. You come to me to reserve CAC dates. You go to the social room calendar to see if you want the social room. But I like to put everything on a big master calendar so that if another committee comes to me and says, I want to do this, I know that your event is there and that it's a potential conflict. So communicate. We're going to do the best we can to get everybody in the best date for you. From there, go to, if you're having a speaker or somebody outside, communicate with your speaker. I have resources for you. I have a whole speaker packet, a letter that can go to your speaker, talking points when you talk to your speaker. What does your speaker need? Are they doing a PowerPoint like we're doing today that they need to hook into our AV system? What kind of laptop are they using? What if they're an entertainer? Are they bringing their own sound equipment? Get as much detail as you can. And again, if you need help, if you need to know what questions to ask, we're here to help you. All of your technical information, please get that in advance because our AV people, they do their best when they have complete and detailed information. So it doesn't have to be done on the fly. Then from there, get a gray sheet, the horrible, horrifying gray sheet. The gray sheet is the one thing that if you're doing anything in this building that you need support on, you must do a gray sheet so that it doesn't fall through the cracks. Gray sheet is gray. Somebody at some point in time decided to print it on gray paper, so it's the gray sheet. I don't know. But what it is it's your vehicle for getting all the support that we just talked about. It's the vehicle for getting your publicity. It's the vehicle for getting your AV support. It's the vehicle for getting your setup support. And I'm going to go into more detail on that in a second. Fill out your gray sheet. They are always, 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 always due the 15th of the month before your event. So if your event is September 20th, your gray sheet is due August 15th. Got it? It's not due September 15th, it's due August 15th. Because what happens is this gray sheet comes in at the end of the month, and I do all this stuff, the posters, the calendar, all that stuff. The tech team gets their people in place to do their stuff. Housekeeping gets their people in place to do their stuff. And the first of the month, we're ready to roll. We got everything ready for the month. Unless there's a glitch, unless there's a little change, we're ready to roll. So 15th of the month prior. And again, the gray sheet looks scary. It's not. For most of your events, it's going to be one little section right here. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but we can talk through it at any time. Fill out your gray sheet, get it to me. Then organize your event details. Put the pieces together. Who are your volunteers? Who's helping you? Who do you need? If you're having a speaker presentation here in the CAC, you want to have greeters to be at the door. You want to have people to count how many people are coming to your event. That's really great information because the next time your committee plans an event, you'll know what the response is. You'll know how many people in the community wanted to be there and potentially how many you can get for another speaker next time around. Are you having refreshments? We don't have refreshments in this room, unfortunately, but if you're having something in the lobby or in the fireside room or in the social room, you're going to want to get all those details together once you have your date and all that set. You know what else should be on here that I didn't put there? Your other volunteers, your setup volunteers. Make sure that you have in place a team that's going to help you set up your stuff, not the furniture, but are you using paper goods? Are you putting up posters? Are you whatever else is related to that event? Make sure you have people to set it up and make sure you have people to break it down. You need a cleanup crew, and you need to know before your event starts that you have a cleanup crew. From there, it's the day of the event. Bring your setup people in, get it all set up, get ready, and have a fun day. Let it go off. Enjoy it. Don't go crazy if little things go wrong. Little things go wrong. They do. It's not the end of the world. You did everything you could to get that event together. Your job now is to smile, greet people, enjoy it, and be happy with the success that you've had. And at the very end, the last section, make sure your cleanup people show up and do their job. If they don't show up, find somebody else, pull them by the arm and say, I need you, because you do. Any questions? Go ahead, Emily.
Do we use the gray sheet now for the social room? Because when I've done it before, the social room had their own form. Has that changed?
Setup for the social room is done via a social room setup sheet. Okay. If you're doing an event in the social room that you want publicity for, I need the gray sheet. Yeah, the social room is governed by the social room committee, so they have their own setup. And housekeeping, same housekeeping staff under Mike Anderson, get those social room setup sheets. But yes, thank you, good question.
Yeah, I was wondering about the 990 permissions.
We'll get
that's
there.
A fairly recent, you're going to cover
Yep,
that.
we'll
right?
get there. Any other questions? John?
I know who Jake is, and I've heard you refer several times to the tech support people, plural. Are those residents, or you have a staff of 30?
Oh,
or what?
everything is residents. The staff, you know the staff. Everybody knows who the staff is. You know me, you know Jake, you know Hannah, you know Barb, you know Mitch. Everybody knows who the staff are. The AV people are your neighbors. They're not an official committee, but they're a group that is your neighbors that learn the technical equipment, meet regularly, assign events to their membership, and pull off your event. Do the AV needs for you. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? All that makes sense? Great. We're doing good. All right, gray sheet. That was the scary one, right? Here's your gray sheet. And there are on your way out, I'm going to have these packets. For those of you who are not familiar with all these procedures, these packets will be there for you on your way out. So from the gray sheet, this is your gray sheet. All of these things happen from your gray sheet. So the information on this sheet, from this, I pull the information. I create the activities calendar. I create the coming events flyer and the lobby posters. Everything comes from here. Your AV tech support team gets their information from this gray sheet. The bulletin board notices come via the gray sheet and the coming events. So I do the coming events. Bulletin board people pull the bulletin inside the elevator notices from the coming events from the gray sheet. 990 broadcast and scrolling slides. If you want scrolling slides, it comes from the gray sheet. If your event is on the calendar and is on the coming events, we read these coming events on the morning broadcast. So, another little thing, did anybody ever notice on your calendar, on your monthly calendar, every month there's a highlight color? Did you notice it changes every month? So this month is this teal blue. And if you notice on your calendar, the recurring events are in black and the special events are in the teal color. Everything in the teal color is what gets read on 990. So I generally do 990 on Monday mornings. So I read everything that happens on Monday. But I also read every special event for the rest of the week. So I read everything that's in teal for the rest of the week. So if there's a special event coming up, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will read and give a little bit of detail about those events. Okay, so those are the things that go on the 990 morning broadcast. And that, again, comes via the gray sheet. Okay? And your housekeeping staff that do your setup, they also get that from the gray sheet. So as much detail as you can. There's a space here to write more. You can draw a diagram. We also have maps of the CAC, the lobby, the balcony, and the social room. And you can draw a setup. You can indicate exactly what you want if it's something specific. Any questions about the gray sheet? Again, if you have any questions, come to me. I can go over it with you at any time. and give you more information. It's not hard. Okay? All right. Speaker, performer, and vendor packet. Okay, the gray sheet is part of the vendor packet. It includes a list of questions that if you're having a speaker or a performer come into the building, these are questions that you can ask that performer or speaker. It gives you cues, what to ask and how to ask it. The second page is a letter that you can fill out to send to your performer or speaker after you've secured them, after you have them booked for that date. Gives them details about where we are, how to get here, how to get into the building, what to expect. Okay? Next item, the media release form. This is something new, and this is very important. It's what Marty was asking about. Prior to me coming here, our speakers were never asked to give a consent to be recorded or broadcast. That scared me because a lot of these people earn their living by speaking in the public. And what I understand, on a lot of occasions, people came here and had no idea that they were going to be recorded. If we record and broadcast a speaker without their consent, we are opening up the co-op to liability. They could potentially sue us. I know it's never happened in the past. Because it hasn't happened in the past doesn't mean it's never going to happen, and you never know. I used to say to my kids all the time when they were young, and I'd say, you got to take this with you. And they'd say, well, Mommy, I don't need that. And I would say, better to have and not need than need and not have. So let's have and not need so that the day that we don't have it and somebody says, I didn't want to be recorded, we have it. And they signed off on it. So all this says, there are 3 points here. It says, I understand that you have an internal broadcast system so that I can be broadcast to the people in the building live, those of our community that can't get down here, or it's too full and there's no space for them. The speaker's being broadcast for everybody to see live. Yes, that's okay. The second one is I agree to be recorded. We are recording them. If they consent, we're recording them on our hard drive, wherever we're recording. I don't know, wherever we're recording them. We're recording them and keeping that recording. Yeah, I agree. The third one is I'm going to let you rebroadcast my presentation later, only inside here at 7500 York, only to this community. We don't rebroadcast it outside of this community, only this community. Speaker says yes or no. No is a fine answer. They can say no. This is elective. This is not mandatory. You can bring in, and we do have speakers that don't want to be recorded. You can bring in a speaker that says, I want to speak to just the people that are in the room and not to anybody else. Great. You have a speaker that says, I want to speak to the people in the room and be live broadcast only at that one particular time. Great, we can do that. We have speakers who want their message to be heard over and over again. They agree to be recorded. They agree to be rebroadcast. Any questions? Okay, and I need these in place before the event. Hard signature, liquid signature, not a DocuSign, not an e-signature, a real signature. Real signature. And what they can do, I mean, they can scan it and PDF it to me. They can take a picture of it on their phone and send it, as long as it's a real signature. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Financial documents. I'm going to let Jake talk about the financial documents. But in this packet, we have our green sheet. Why is it green? Green is about money. This is how you get things paid for, by the green sheet. We also have in the packet a W-9 form, because for a speaker to get paid from Ebenezer, they have to have a W-9 form because they have to declare what they're being paid for their taxes. And again, Jake is going to talk more to this. What else he needs an invoice or a letter of engagement, and I'm not going to answer questions about that because that's his thing. Any other questions about the stuff in the packet? And there are these packets for on the way out. Okay, easy, got it, good. All right. Very important. When you're planning events, when you're planning programs, you have a committee. Like Bob said, particularly the RAC committees. The RAC committees are not limited to 7 members. It's the charge of the committee and the committee chair, and I'm trying to remember the right wording, to determine the needs to fulfill the, basically fulfill the charter. So if your charter has you doing 12 things, you have to figure out how many members of that committee you need to fulfill those responsibilities. If your committee only does one thing, only throws a party once a year, how many people do you need on that committee? If your committee is, anyway, it doesn't matter. The RAC committees are different. The committee and the chair, co-chair, the committee itself decides how many members are needed for that committee. But you have a room full of people. You're not the only person available to make or to set up or to orchestrate an event. Use your resources. The people in this building are phenomenal resources. They have talent. They have leadership skills. They want to do things and feel like they belong. They want to do things that contribute to the committee and to the community. They want to know what the objective is. They want to know what's the purpose. Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? Why is this piece important to the event or to the committee? And you want to get input and feedback from all of your committee. If one person on a committee wants to do something and nobody else does, doesn't seem like a good idea, because you're not going to have the support, the emotional support, and you're not going to have the physical support to get it done. And positive attitude. With all these things, you're going to have a successful committee and you're going to have a successful event. Any questions? No? Okay, good. Okay, publicity. I told you we were going to talk about the York Times a little bit later. This is also internal publicity. I think that the York Times is one of the most important things that goes on in this building, because it gives people a sense of community. It talks about what's going on in the building. It talks about individual people's pasts and accomplishments. It talks about what's available here, and its connection between the past, the present, and a lot of times the future. And it brings a lot of resources into this building and this community as well. So I hope that every committee in this building appropriately uses the York Times. And the people on that committee, the committee members for the York Times, work hard, they're dedicated, they're interesting. They want to bring new information and really phenomenal information to the members here. Same as the gray sheet. The submission deadline is by the 15th, generally by the 15th of the month. When the dates fall a little funny, it might be a little different, but target the 15th of the month as your drop dead deadline. That's the deadline. That's not the day that you're meant to bring everything. If you bring it sooner, even better. We would like one person per committee to bring submissions to the York Times. 3 or 4 different submissions from the same committee that have overlapping and redundant information, not good, not helpful, because then the editorial staff needs to go through, figure out what is overlap, figure out sometimes there's inconsistencies, and then it makes a burden on the editorial staff. So please, if you're a committee chair, designate one person on your committee to do your York Times submissions. Save the York people a lot of headache. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the best way to get information to the newsletter. John Ramsey is the chairman of the newsletter committee. He's the conduit for all your information. The best way to get information to John is to send him a Microsoft Word document by email, electronically. So it's a document that's a suffix docx. For those of you who get that, for those of you who don't understand computers or are kind of shaky on that, it's a document created in a program called Microsoft Word. There are alternative ways to submit information, and I don't know if you noticed that the words start really big and bright and get really small and dark, because I don't want you doing the bottom ones. I want you doing the top ones. So if you can't send a Microsoft Word document to John via email, if you work in Apple, if you're on an iPad, an iMac, or a MacBook, There's a different operating system. And Apple, their primary page letter writing software is called Pages. It does not convert directly. You have to do a conversion. If you work in Apple, I have a conversion procedure for you. So if you don't know how to do it, if you don't know how to convert your Pages documents to Microsoft Word, come to me. I'll give you a copy of the procedure. We can walk through it and get you going. Make it easier for John and his crew. You can type your announcement directly into an email and send it to John. That's pretty easy too. If you're good with email and you have information you want to send, type it right into an email, send it to John. They can cut and paste it out and work with it from there. Copy and paste it. Find a friend or a neighbor or a committee member to help you. Not ideal. It happens. And that's where if you're a committee chair, designate a person to be the communicator that is computer proficient, that works primarily, preferably, in Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office. If not, go down the list. Try not to go to the dark side. On the bottom, deliver on paper to John's apartment. This is not ideal because then somebody has to retype it. And if it's handwritten and you're not good handwriting, a lot of it is deciphering. So ideally, Microsoft Word to John by email. Second, if you're working in Pages, convert to Microsoft Word. Type it into an email. Find a friend. What was the game show? Find a friend? Anyway, or deliver on paper. Anybody have any questions? No? Any Yorkie people who want to input more? John, no? Oh, okay. Okay. Where are we? Oh, yep. And this is referencing back to the deadline. The 15th of the month is the drop dead. Try not to wait till the 15th. If you know you want to get something in, get it in as soon as you can. Because when he gets a bottleneck of submissions, he has to then get them out to his editing people, and it becomes a cry for help. So if you have stuff coming, try to get them in sooner. Ease the burden for John and the rest of his committee, because they work their behinds off for the rest of the month. All right, I'm going to introduce Jake, but if anyone has any questions before that, no? All right. All right, Jake.
Well, good afternoon, 7,500 York folks. The best for last, right? I got a few jokes to kind of liven you up. Sounds a little too quiet in here. You know, at my old cooperative, they really like jokes about seniors and such, you know, forgot your teeth or whatever. But I'm going to tell some jokes about millennials. How about that? How do you weigh a millennial? In Instagrams. Why don't millennials use caps and always use lowercase? Because they reject capitalism. Oh, come on, that was pretty good. Okay, and then my last one, and I'll start talking about exciting things. Why do millennials... Wait, hold on. Why do millennials always walk around like they're renting the place? Get it? They don't own the... Oh. Okay, well, I tried. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jacob Watson. I am the office manager, director of administration, what have you. And I am here to try to help things go smooth when it comes to check cutting and reimbursing of committee members and all of the boring things that sometimes we have to do together. So I just want to say that our mission in the office is to always serve you and to try to make things as smooth as possible. Sometimes I make mistakes, but we're just trying to help smooth your process out. So let me introduce myself and the team. So I've introduced myself, Megan Cruz-Jusela. She used to, Natalie used to, not Natalie, oh my gosh. Andrea used to have her position. So she is the new administrative assistant. So she is also the one helping me do administrative tasks, help committees, do bookings with the social room and boardroom calendar, and helping with check organization and things like that for reimbursement. So she is a vital process to the administrative team. And Hannah also assists with different committee-related functions, Hannah Parker, and she assists us as well. And we are here to help you and your committee members be successful in your different tasks and responsibilities. So one of the things that's changed since last year is we're using the base calendar for booking the social room and the boardroom for events and meetings and different discussions that may need to occur. So I did retain the paper calendars in case there's anything that was missed from this year, because they were filled out all the way through the year. And Megan and I did our best, mostly Megan, thank you, Megan, of transposing all that data into the digital calendars. So if anything is missed, we do have the paper record running through the end of 2024. For folks that have to book multiple things for their committee, multiple meetings, multiple events, we can create individual committee accounts so you don't have to house those reservations under your unit number. We can go ahead and give you a committee number so you can separate the two. If that's something you are interested in doing, we can definitely do that for you. We've already done that for some committees. So if you want one of those, just let me know and I'm happy to assist you. For any recurring events and meetings that are either in the social room or in the boardroom, we can definitely set those up and we can get very specific. Let's say you meet once every 3 months on the second week of the month. We can get that as specific with it if that is what you require. So just let us know what things you would need us to do for your meetings, recurring events, and different things like that in both bookable spaces. Communication is key. So if things change, if you no longer need that space for that duration of time or for that recurring pattern, please let us know so we can free that up for somebody else. It's always good to know what's going on so everybody has an opportunity to leverage that space if you are no longer using it. So please be sure to communicate any changes with your committee schedule, or maybe you don't have those meetings anymore or whatnot. So please let us know. And then update Megan with changes as necessary. So if a time changes, we had someone come today and they had to adjust all the times for their meetings all the way through the end of the year from 10 a.m. to 9 a.m. Please let us know. We can make those little changes for you right at the front desk. You can do it yourself. If you do not feel comfortable doing so, we're happy to do it for you in the office at the front desk. Just let us know. Purchases and reimbursement for committees. So Kara touched on it a little bit about speakers, entertainers, and presenters being reimbursed. So how the process works is with the paperwork that's already been shown to you before with the gray sheet arranging the event, then you have the reimbursement forms and check cutting forms for those particular speakers or presenters. It is very important that we have a few things. One, a letter or an invoice just indicating what service they're rendering to the cooperative, what they're speaking on, maybe how many hours they're going to be here, and so on. And then a W-9. If they already have a W-9 on file, that's great, but we might still need it if they've had an address change, and I'm going to touch on that in a moment. And then the paperwork for here, so I know what committee it's to, so I can code it correctly in our accounts payable paperwork that we do for our end. Purchases, and more purchases. So folks here like to purchase things for their committee. Fun and games, we'll purchase games sometimes. There's decorations that are purchased. Something that might be an advantage to you going forward is considering the office first and your pocketbook second. So meaning that if you want to purchase something from Amazon, the cooperative has an Amazon account. We could purchase it, have it mailed to the office, and then we wouldn't have to cut a check for you or reimburse you in any way. Just to make it faster, easier, cleaner, and there's less paperwork for you to do. We have an Amazon account, we have a Target account, we have a Sam's Club, we have a lot of different options to purchase. So before you doing it yourself, it may be of an advantage to you to come to the office first, and maybe we could just purchase it for you on the credit card and code it to the correct expense to the correct committee, and you wouldn't even have to use your own funds. Just as an option to consider. The check cutting process will never be perfect. Try really hard to get it right, but sometimes things go wrong. If there is a mistake, please let me know. We'll work through it. I do my best to try to keep it organized, to keep it clean, but sometimes things get miscommunicated, or someone else is cutting the checks versus someone who usually does it for us at the corporate office. You know, we do pretty well, but there's been a couple of times where things have not gone correctly. Just let me know of those issues and we will work through them. W-9s and invoices, I've gotten a lot of questions about that since I've been here. If you have a speaker that's coming and you know they have a W-9 on file, it may be to your advantage to resubmit it again, because sometimes those speakers, those entertainers, their business address changes. This has actually happened quite a few times the past year, and the check doesn't go to the right place. And then we have to go ahead and void that check, recut it, remail it to the correct address to the correct speaker or entertainer or presenter. And that is fees that go against your guys' operating account to have to do that. So in order to help you incur less fees, maybe just check with the person you're having come. Just ask them, like, has your billing address changed? Has anything changed from the last time you presented or did your speaking here? And then always keep in mind, like, anytime we have to change a check, resubmit it, that's all fees that, you know, hit our operating account. We don't want that to happen as much as possible. Committee office supplies and copies. So what's mine is always yours. So anything in the office you may need, paper clips, staples, rulers, pencils, pens, paper, anything you guys need in order to make posters, to do things, that's all your stuff. So come on to the office. If you need any of those kinds of things, we have it all organized. We can give you binder clips. So just keep in mind, so you don't have to dig into your personal things. Come to the office. We're happy to give you different office supplies that we have that we can give you so you can do your committee business. And also, if you have items that you need that you think would be beneficial for you to do your different committee functions, maybe you want a paper cutter, maybe you want this, just let us know. We'll be happy to order those things to make it easy for you to do your committee responsibilities. All right, and we're going to talk about the dreaded copier on the second floor that nobody likes. I know you guys don't like it, and I'm sorry for that. Not really, though. It's important that we try to use the copier on the second floor, and let me explain why. When I first got here, there were some folks that were trying to ascertain different costs for different amenities, and they were trying to base it off of the copying that's done in the office and project that onto different things and keep track of different things. That's great to do, but it's important that we try to keep the copier in the office for all the administrative things that go on versus all of the member copies. So then we get an accurate portrayal of what's actually being spent rather than attributing it all to one area. Does that make sense? It's just easier to do the accounting that way and to be fair to who's doing what. So we don't have an inaccurate number of what's occurring, who's making copies, and for what purpose. So I know it is annoying, but it really does help us later in the year know what we're doing and for what reason. So that's the importance of using it. And currently we are keeping track of the copies. I'm not doing any chargeback right now. I'm just kind of seeing the next couple of months where all the copying's coming from, what's occurring, you know, what are the purposes, and then we will go from there. But it is really important to use it, and it's really important to help us keep track of where copies are, you know, being needed the most. Also, there is a sign up there. I don't know if everybody has seen it, but if you want personal assistance and learning on how to use that copier, I am more than happy to stand up there as long as it takes to help you feel comfortable using the copier. I also, thanks to Kara's assistance, made a manual to try to use it. You can look at that, but I'm more than happy to personally help you or go through the manual with you so you feel confident in using the copier. And if you have questions, ask them. If you want to know, can it do this? Can I do this function? Would this work? Just ask me. Send me an email. Come down to my office next to Mitch's office, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Okay, so now we're almost done, I promise. Okay, so I just want to say we're always here to assist you in the office. Bring your ideas and let's share ideas and make things better. I really want to work with you guys as a team, because if we don't do teamwork, it's not as fun, right? So just let us know how we can help you in the office with any of your committee responsibilities. Are there any questions, comments, concerns?
So regarding technical support, do you support any problems we might be having with PowerPoint, Microsoft Office PowerPoint?
I'm more than happy to help you with a PowerPoint presentation you're trying to get working. Just let me know. You can send me the file and tell me what the issue is. You can come down to my office. I'm more than happy to help you with something like that. Yes.
I'm wondering if there is any typing assistance. I'm the only one in our committee that can do that, apparently, and I'm not very good. Is there any assistance in the office, like Mary Beth did?
For typing up, you can use different software things that you can just dictate and it will type it for you. If there's certain documents that need to be typed, let me know and I'll review that request first, and I can maybe delegate that to Megan, but I would like to review the kind of typing that needs to be done and go from there.
Okay.
But yeah, just let me know and I'm happy to take a look at that.
What's something like just the committee minutes, an agenda, that kind of thing?
We can discuss that offline after the
All
our
right.
meeting's over. Rhett.
So
You don't have your name tag on, Rhett. How am I supposed to know who you are?
How? Do we have codes for various committees for copy projects?
Yes, I have given those out. I can continue to give them out. So if you need your code, just come see me and I'll give them to you. I give them to a lot of committee members since that copier's gone up. But if you need the code, see me offline after and I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
My question is related to that as well. I have used the code that was given for the bulletin board committee and it doesn't work for me. It might work for someone else, but it has not worked for me. So I've had to plug in my floor number and then it works.
Okay. Well, I can look at that too offline and get that situated as well. Any other questions? Okay, hopefully I didn't bore you too much. And you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
So Jake was correct in one thing, that he did save the best for last. So good to be back with you here. There are some resources to take away. The updated organizational information packet for 2024-2025 is where? On the way out, you're going to get those. It's a draft. And Hannah is looking for feedback and or corrections on that. There's a speaker vendor packet and accounts payable procedure packet or handout, one sheet. So you have those to take with you today. And then just want to say thank you to everybody. It was great of you to, I'm sorry? Go back 2 slides. Oh, how did I miss that? I'm sorry. Ebenezer does have additional resources for committees. And for the marketing committee, Ebenezer has a marketing associate or consultant, Jamin Johnson, and she is always willing to get together with marketing committees to give them an assistance in any of the ways that you see listed up there. Finance committee, whether Connie Bednarek from our Ebenezer team, she's the controller for Ebenezer Accounting, or Patty Jarvis, she is the accounting manager. They give some assistance with reading financial statements, financial reports, and so forth. And they are both available as well. And then on the building side, John Callahan, who's director of maintenance for Ebenezer and works with all of our properties. He's always available as well for the property committee or otherwise as needed. And then, just want to thank you all for coming today. It's a lot of information that's been packed into these couple of hours, and especially for committee chairs and board liaisons and committee members as well. And the board as board of directors that are here as liaisons, but it may have helped as directors as well. We just appreciate you coming. If you have any questions at all about committees and committee function and those sorts of things, feel free to see me at any time or any of the others that were listed from our admin team, Jake, Megan, Hannah, Kara, that can give assistance in different areas with committees. Don't hesitate to see us. And have a great,
just one.
Don't have a great anything until you hear from Rich.
Take what every committee chairs especially. We've worked really hard to try to get all these names right. So go through and check your committee. Everybody do the job and get back to Hannah with the corrections on this. Go through the whole packet, actually. And if you see something, give us some ideas. We'd appreciate your help. There's a bunch of them back here.
All right. Have a good afternoon and evening, everybody. And I will see you next week. I'm off tomorrow.